We are going to look at how to load metadata into OneStream using a SQL query using MMM. That's a lot of usings. Uh, anyway, if you have not watched the earlier video of where we were updating metadata using a file, you can do that now. We will be going through some of the details that you saw in the previous video and this one too. So with that, let's look at how to do it. So MMM, you can go to load from SQL tab, and in that you can see a metadata tab in there. You can pick a dimension that you want to update. So we're going to update the account dimension type. And again, profile, you can create a profile or use an existing one. When you create a profile, that remembers everything that you're doing. So if I write a SQL query in here, that gets saved to the profile. The options that I'm selecting here, that gets saved there. The dimensions that I'm picking, all of those are getting saved in the profile. Then you can keep reusing them. So in order to execute the SQL query in MMM, you need an external database connection, or wherever your metadata is coming from, you need that source system configured in OneStream as an external connection. Otherwise, you won't be able to write a SQL query against that. So I have set up connections to the tables that I'm using. So I'm going to use AdventureWorks Data Warehouse. This is a warehouse that you get when you install SQL Server. It is pretty straightforward. So if you look at the Adventure Warehouse, it has a few tables in there. There are some fact tables. There are some dimension tables. We're going to make use of the account dimension table to create our account in here. So you can name the profile. So I'm going to create a new profile called account SQL, and I'm going to update my dimension called measures. So if you go into the measures dimension, you can see that I do already have some members in there. There are no orphan members. I'm going to now add the AdventureWorks Warehouse account members in here. So we need to now run a query. So I have a query which I already prepared. I just said if the parent key is null, then make it as root, or else just give me the numbers, whichever is there. I'm grabbing the description of the account. So I have that there. Then I said, okay, the child is going to be the alternate account key. That's my child. And I said account type. I want to make use of the OneStream account types in there. So there are account types that are there in the dimension account table for AdventureWorks. Slightly different. It says assets instead of assets. So I'm just saying that, okay, case statement, assets, make it as asset. Balances, make it as balance. Expenditures is expend. So all those things. We are now going to run the SQL query inside MMM. So let's run that query in MMM. We're going to pick replace option. We're not deleting any orphan members. We're not just saying update members only, because those members are not there. So you cannot reuse that option to just say update member properties only. You are now building it. So once we have the SQL in there, let's run that query. It says metadata SQL executed successfully. And now it will show us the result of the query. Again, like what we saw in the load file, you can only view 50 rows. You can view only 50 rows in there. However, all the fields that you grab are going to be there. It's just that I'm not showing them. Now we need to perform the column mapping, because that's the next step that we need to do. Because we are now telling MMM that these columns that came out of the SQL are the corresponding properties for OneStream. So I can select all of them by using the select all button, or I could do it one by one. I'm going to say, okay, select parent, add there. I can keep on selecting them and adding them. So I'm just going to select all of them and then say add. That select all feature is only available from, I think, 6 6.2 version onwards. The versions prior to that is not going to have a select all column there. Now we're going to map the columns, and we're going to say that is my account type, then this is going to be my description. Now if you don't save it, let's say I'm going to purposefully create an error saying okay, I did that, and if you don't use the save button here and then say update mapping, you are going to get an error which says name cannot be null because that is not saved there. So if you ever get that, just keep in mind you need to save the information here so that you can do an update mapping, because that save is different from what we are doing with an update mapping. Once I update the mapping, what happens is all the columns that are in here will now be changed to the corresponding properties in OneStream. And you can preview the hierarchy before building it. So you can click on preview hierarchy, and then you can see how it will look like once you update the dimension in OneStream. So that's how it's going to look like. We're going to say okay there, and you can grab the command line argument like we were doing last time. If you click that, it is going to now have the SQL query, all the column mapping that we did just now. So if we now go to the file that we have, so those are the ones that I did from last time. So this is what is going to happen if you click on the command line argument, and if you click Control A and copy everything, it will say that the profile name you have that was there, the dimension type is account, the dim name that you're going to use is that's the option. All the column name, the child name is child, parent name is parent, account type is that, and you have your entire SQL string in there, which will be used when you do it. So you can directly now run this in a PowerShell. You don't even have to adjust anything. You can use the PowerShell to execute this automatically night owls operation if you want to. So we're now going to say build the hierarchy. It is now going to build our AdventureWorks account hierarchy in OneStream. So let's look at that one. There we go. We have balance sheet, we have income statement, we have the statistical account. Now, let's say that I just want to wipe out the entire thing. I don't want my measures, the profit inventory ratios and all these things. I just want this to be clean. I just want my accounts that are coming from AdventureWorks only here. How will I do that? Now, what we can do is we could go ahead and then say, I am going to remove all of these guys. I'm going to make them as remove the relationships. I'm going to make these as orphans. So I can just say, go ahead, remove the relationships. I can go in and do that and say remove. Now all the account hierarchy is gone. They are there in orphans. Now let's use the replace along with delete orphan members option. What's going to happen now is it is going to wipe out the entire accounts hierarchy if there is no data with it, and it's going to fail because I knew that it is going to fail. There is going to be data, like we saw that when we were doing the file. It says member inventory has data, that is a record that we have. So what we are going to do now is I have a data management sequence. I am going to run that clear statement so that I'm going to clear the data from the queue. So I'm just going to run that statement. Okay, I cleared the entire data for 2018, and now we are going to run this again. So let's do the build hierarchy. There we go. The dimension loaded successfully because there is no data there, so it did use the delete member option. Now let's look at our measures hierarchy. There we go. Everything is removed from orphan members, and then you have now a clean hierarchy, which is nothing but just the accounts that are there from AdventureWorks. That's how you can use that delete member operation along with the replace to wipe out your orphan members. Now, if you just want to delete the orphan members, you can use a merge and then just run that. You can just create a dummy account and then say, I just want to. So this is kind of like, I joke about it saying that I created a hack into my own tool. So I'm just going to say select root as parent, and comma to delete as child, and I'm going to say this is account delete SQL. I can now just run that SQL query and just say I'm going to use a merge operation. I'm going to just say I don't want any statistical account. So all I'm going to do there is you don't have to. Let's say that I just want to delete the orphan members from my hierarchy. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to update or anything. I just want this thing to wipe out all my orphan members. You can just do that by just saying just create a dummy definition and then say that is the one that you're going to delete. You map the members and all you then say is delete hierarchy. What's going to happen is it is going to just create that member and then remove all the orphan members from your hierarchy. So if you now go back to your dimension, you will see that that came in here. All the orphan members are gone. All you now do is just come back in there and then delete that member. So you can wipe out or clean your hierarchy using MMM. Again, that's kind of a hack. You just add a member and then just say delete operation and then use merge, and then that will wipe out the entire delete orphan members. Now, update member properties is again something you can do using MMM. So let's say that we are now going to change this guy to say gross margin is nothing but it is a group type. And now I can go back and then say give me the profile that I used to load the SQL. So I have that over there, and let's run that one. Okay. So I believe we have that in there. Now all we are going to do is we are just going to update the member properties only. So let's pick a guy that we can see in here that is 8040. So let's say go to 8040. Let's change that one to group. And let's also change this guy. Let's change that to balance or liability. So in here it is a revenue type. We changed it to liability there. We changed the parent also. Now we can perform a column mapping just like how we were doing. It remembers from the old selection. All I have to do is now just say update mapping. It did the mapping update, and all we are now going to do is just update the member property. It's not going to build anything. That's why we were removing the ones that are not there. So I'm going to just say build. It did update the member properties. So let's look at 80. It became revenue. Let's look at 8040. It became revenue as well. So that's how you can update the member property. And if I remove this, you will now see that it is going to fail if I just have that information. So if I now run this SQL and try to build it and then just say update member property, it is not going to work because we don't have the members in there. So I did that build, and if I say build hierarchy, it is not going to build anything excuse me, because it is not having the information to create 9500. However, it will update the member properties of these. So that's how the update member properties only is going to work. It's not going to build anything. It just will update that only. Even though 9500 it was in there, it's not going to create anything for that particular member. So that's how that one works. You can do a merge operation. If you do a merge and then let's say that one moved. So let's say we are going to move a member in here. That is a gain. We are going to copy that member and going to put that under 4500 as first child. Now, if I use the merge operation here, which is the default OneStream option, and I'm going to say run that and then do a build hierarchy, what's going to happen is it is going to now add that particular member, which is 8040 under there and under 40. So it's not going to do a merge operation. It's not going to do a replace operation. It's just going to merge it. That's how the default one works. So you can use a replace, and then now what's going to happen is it is going to now remove the one that is under 40 and then make it work just like how you intended to. So there we go. If 8040 is moved from there, it is not there anymore. It is 8040 is under only 80 only. Okay, now that we are done with the metadata, let's look at the varying member property. Now this is slightly different than the one that we saw with the file. Here you need to write a SQL which will generate the files like the one like the file that we saw. So yeah, I'm going to say this is product varying SQL. Now what you'll have to do is, let's say that I do have a table in here which holds the data in member hierarchy. So I'm just going to show you that. So I have this like a parent, child, and property table. So if you have your database configured like this to have all the properties as columns, and in that fashion, you will have to write a SQL which will unpivot the columns into rows. So I do have a sample for that one. So this is there in the help guide. So all we are going to now do is we are just going to say grab the property. We're going to say get T1, T2, T3, unpivot them, and then use it to build the member properties. So now we are going to just run that SQL, and oh wait, my connection is not AdventureWorks. My connection is external table. So I'm just going to run that. So it will execute successfully, and as you can see, I have that exact same format that I need for my varying member property data. So I have member name, I have a scenario as default, I have cube type as default, time as default. The property that we are going to update is text1. That value is whole bean. So whatever was in the column, we now unpivoted it into a row. So that's what we did. So that's a property. Now, if you look at our products, so 10 Colombian regular whole bean, it is not having well, actually it is having a text which is blue. Now we are going to update that with whole bean. So that's what we are going to do. Instead of blue, it is going to be whole bean. The other one is, what was the other one? 2020. We're going to say that is blend. I guess there is premium in there, so that's going to be updated. And Arcania, I don't think there is anything in that one. Yep. So this is going to now update to in use. It will go to false because we are going to say we don't want that to be used. So that's again, like I was mentioning, varying member property is nothing but a slowly changing dimension. So you could update it saying it should go to a particular year or a scenario. You could say that that is not in use. So the hierarchy is not going to show you that, and then all the calculation will not have that information. So that's like if you are stopping a product from, let's say, this year onwards, you could do so by saying in use is false. Now let's update the properties. It says it's updated. Now if you go to the dimension library and look at 1010, that's going to be changed. It had blue in there. Now it's whole bean, regular, and IL. Our premium blend had premium. Oh no, it's not that one. Which one did we update? 2020. It's 2020 Colombian decaf is going to have blend, premium, and IL in there. Now dark Kenya is going to have other, dark, and SC in there. So that's how you can update the varying member property using a SQL. Just keep in mind that if you have the properties stored as column, you need to unpivot it. If these are stored as rows itself, like the way you are seeing it here, you can directly run that query against it, which I highly doubt, because you might be having that as a parent-child hierarchical and the properties as columns. So I highly doubt you have it in this format. So you just have to unpivot it and then do that. So that is how you can use SQL queries to update your metadata using MMM. Just that you need to have that external connection set up so that you can run the SQL queries against it.